Hello, Peter, and welcome, folks, to today's Ponder. This is an interesting Ponder, I think, indeed. It's what Peter will be discussing is exit strategies and including the possibility of selling it to business to yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Peter.
Well, thank you, Paul. You've put that in an interesting way. What I'm looking at is getting ready to sell from day one, which is along the lines you've suggested, because I think one of the first questions I ask businesses or intenders is, when are you getting out? And they often can't answer that, Paul. So that reveals a lack of planning, because surely if we're going to take all this effort and investment of time and money to go into the business, we should have some idea of how long we're going to do it. It's never, or generally these days, not a lifetime thing as it used to be. We get in, we plan, we get out. Sometimes the product itself goes out of date within a certain period of time. So if we plan to be in the business longer than the product is useful, that really is not a good outcome. The other thing I ask is what type of business you're going into, because there's three ways that business can generate income, and you have to know which one you're in. And some people don't decide that, Paul. So very simple stuff, really. The first one is that you make an income as you go along, but you come to the end of the time frame, you've got nothing to sell because the business is based around you, and so it's not a saleable business, but it can do very well. The second one, of course, is that you can trade along and make some money and then sell it at a profit. And so that's another income. So the profit becomes part of that plan for that, what we want to achieve in that time frame. And the third one is a combination of both. So you can make good money and plan your what you want to achieve. So that might be things that we can set down for, I mentioned in a previous Ponder about wealth creation, so that we can have that 5, 10 or 15 years both for that sort of planning, but also planning for what we want to do next. Quite interesting what we learn in one role, we can transfer and use that knowledge to do something different and perhaps and hopefully even better. But the question of, I guess, achieving that wealth creation plan is looking at knowing when we're going to get out. And just to close on your comment, Paul, the idea is that if you're ready to sell, we have everything in place. We've got all our presentation of our business correct. We've got everything written down. Everything's humming along. And if we can maintain that, we're pretty much ready to sell at any time. But if we get to the end of our 5, 10 or 15 years that we've set, and we're still enjoying it, we can buy ourselves back for $1. But the point is, we're ready to sell. And that's a really important component of any of this planning. So it may be to sell or it may be to close down, depending on the type of business you're in. So just two things, I guess. The business needs to decide how long they're going to trade. And the second one is, what type of business are they in to be able to plan that time frame.
So there's a few things tied up with that, I think, Peter. One of them is goal setting. Goodness gracious me, I've bumped into, as of you, many businesses where there are no goals or no clear goals articulated. I think another concept in what you've said is, and I'm going to introduce a word here, Peter, drift. Things tend to drift along.
Drift, yeah, good word.
They drift along if there's no clear date set.
Yeah.
And so, a business owner might look at themselves in the mirror the business has been drifting along for the last few years, and actually they've come to the realization, well, it isn't worth much. Or there's a whole heap of things that they need to do to actually even contemplate selling it. And So I think that actually you really teased out a really important point, which is it doesn't hurt to have an attitude in business, and that is working towards making it sale ready.
Yeah, be
And
ready for sale. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
and you know, in such a way, you're almost certainly going to be embedding more value in the business as you go along.
exactly. Yeah, that's a major point. And
Yeah,
of course, there's not this rushing around trying to sell at the end of the day, because the business is already just simple stuff too. You know, all the problems have been overcome because you've done them as you go. There's no, you know, who wants to buy a set of problems at the end of the day? So there's a whole
absolutely.
range of stuff. Yeah, yeah,
I think a good adage that goes with this, Peter, is that if you are contemplating selling the business, be prepared that it's probably going to take you at least 12 months. It's
yes,
a lot of people get to the point where they do indeed want to sell the business, and they expect that they're actually going to do the transaction in a matter of weeks, or maybe even a few months. But reality is, it's going to be a time-consuming process. And in many instances, the business owner themselves have not been actually grooming it for sale.
very much so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And perhaps that last year of the period that you've set can be putting that in place, getting ready to sell. The other things, because of intellectual property and also confidentiality, once a business is known to be for sale, there's a bit of uncomfortableness amongst the staff, the customers, suppliers, because there's an uncertainty of what's going to happen. So all of that's got to be managed as well to get through the sale process, and deciding whether you've actually got something to sell. I mean, I've had clients that have had to be told, who should have been told by the accountant, that they've actually got nothing to sell, which was quite a shock to them and disappointing to have to do that. But yeah, getting ready to sell means your business is humming along at perfectly, or as well as possible, and it makes the job easier. Then you could be grooming potential buyers as well in that last time. So you've been able to keep an eye on who's showing some interest in the business, whether it be staff or suppliers or competitors that might potentially be groomed to buy that business when the time comes.
A fascinating topic, Peter, and thank you for teasing out those sorts of ideas, and extremely important considerations indeed. So thank you again, and also too thank you folks for listening to today's Ponder. And if you do get, or if you have gotten some benefit out of it, please, we would encourage you to subscribe to our channel. So again, thank you, Peter, and thank you, folks.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. See you next time we ponder.